And I can prove it to you because we have a thing called a fundamental attribution error. If I'm ratty and angry and miserable, it's because of circumstance. I had to have my teeth done, my daughter had to have her teeth done, I lost my glasses and I have to wear the sunglasses because of this light that's coming in my eyes because I had the eye operation, and that's why I'm ratty.
Today.
If you're ratty, well, all the time. All the time. My daughter just crashed her car, I'm ratty again. But if I'm ratty, it's because of all these external things. Yeah. If you're ratty, by the way, it's because you're a bitch, because you're a horrible person. And that's what we do all the time.
That's your perception about me.
That's human perception. We attribute stuff which is happening to us as being part of the environment, and we have an external cause for it.
The projection or the.
But correct.
Some people call it objectification.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but it's the same thing. It's an attribution error. I attribute my bad mood to external circumstances, but when I look at people, there is a tendency for everybody to see it as being a result of internal personality stuff.
Right. So you're mapping the world to your internal state, is what you're saying, in that situation.
What you're doing is you're saying my internal state is a direct result of external circumstances, which are sort of beyond my control. But you are a nasty person. Right. I don't take into account that you may, in fact, be showing your stuff as a result of external circumstances. So the world actually defines our personality. So going back to the point is if you want to get out of that groove, you have to encounter someone, a guru, a therapist, a friend, and have a conversation. But the point is to find out, you need to find out what are the deep emotional drivers, the deep personal cherished ideals, which are going to help you link to your purpose. You can't go out in the world to find your purpose, really. You need to start with yourself and begin to look at the checklist and say, why do I really want these things? What is really driving it, as with the girl with the wedding dress? It turned out if she was thin, her husband, fiancé, was never going to leave her.
For her, she thought that.
That was all of the emotional drivers.
Yeah.
Whereas in reality, when we encountered that with him, and we then altered her personality by him saying to her, I am never going to leave you. I don't care if you put on 100 kilograms, I'm never going to leave you. I love the way you are, and if you get thinner, I might leave you. Because I don't want a bag of bones. I'm Latino, you're a Latino, this is how you're built. Chica, let's do this, And it was wonderful because I didn't have to spend the time as a therapist because I couldn't help her, he could.
Yeah.
And he began to sat with her, and she lost 10 kilos, not 20. And we had to put in a few panels, and she had to use some high heels to look taller. But we made it happen for her because it was a cherished ideal. So we didn't trash it and unhook it. We just made it as close as possible. And this is the issue. People think you've got to get 100% of what you want to be happy.
Right.
Turns out about 70% is going to be just cool. You want to lose 20 kilos, 14 is actually fine. It's about happiness. When people come in for rehab, I tell them, I cannot restore you to the life you had. But what about we give you a different life in which you're happy? In which you encounter your own resolve and your own emotions, in which you follow your cherished ideals, but not in architecture. Maybe it's working in the church. I don't know. Life is not what you think it is. You're living in this little orange strip on the top of the fruit.
Peel, yeah.
Yeah, the orange peel, but I can't say orange the way you do. I try, but can't fake American like that. But the real stuff is going to happen encountering yourself in the presence of other people who are curious about you. In the Dale Carnegie sense, there's a thing called homophily. We try to get close to people who are the same as us. We even marry people who are the same as us. Very often in looks, in temper, and what we want. There is no change built into there. You've often got to encounter groups who are very different to you.
You mean to grow?
To grow, you've got to cross cultures.
Yes.
You've got to learn languages. You can't go to Paris and learn French and live in Paris and be happy. Because there are 1,000 rules about dinner parties you don't get. There's 1,000 rules about bringing up baby you never get. But if you encounter those and you enable change and you encounter yourself in different circumstances, you start to learn about yourself, such as soldiers do in war. Nobody who went to the My Lai massacre as an American Vietnam soldier knew that he could kill civilians and kill children. I've worked with guys...
I didn't know about that massacre, and I'm American,
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, My Lai was a big opening because, the Nuremberg defense was that American British soldiers wouldn't have followed orders and killed civilians the way the Nazis did and the way the Germans became Nazis. The Germans did this, not the Nazis, the Germans. Americans did the My Lai massacre. Dair Yassin was a whole group of Israeli immigrants from Europe killing Arabs and women and children. The point is that we can do terrible things because of circumstances. We're not fixed personalities. The reverse of that is we can do amazing things because we're not fixed personalities.
Yes, that's so great. That's such a, yeah, I mean, it's the power, we have the power to destroy and the power to create.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing as human beings. So I want to get back to, because I want to get the 7 areas, because we've talked about body, mind, motivation.
So motivation, once you know, I mean, everybody knows what they should be doing around food and movement. There are a lot of
they don't do it.
misperceptions. Correct. So the book starts off with, you know what you're supposed to do, but you just don't do it.
In fact, you say, if I hopefully will quote you correctly, it's not necessarily the rewarding results of success that stimulate dopamine, but the expectation of reward that triggers this very one system in the brain. So the reason I'm going there is because it's an important part of the book. It's back to the brain and how that does, those hits create the behavior changes and how to link up those hits.
Great. So let's think about it this way. You can have great IQ. You can have gone to an Ivy League college and you could have 5 degrees and you can do all kinds of stuff. No guarantee of success whatsoever.
Right.
You can have great emotional intelligence. You're not just a good manager who knows how to make money and give people pink slips when necessary. You are actually the guy who engages with people and is loved and is felt to be empathic and what doesn't guarantee success. Guess what guarantees success? People who have grit, defined as stick-to-itness, defined as your ability to stick to something in the absence of clear rewards on the basis of an expectation of reward if I just keep on going.
Right, so and how does that relate to dopamine being released in the brain?
So dopamine doesn't reward you. Dopamine doesn't reward you. You get dopamine, but the expectation of reward produces the dopamine that drives you. And dopamine will drive you to eat food because when you're hungry, you expect the reward of eating food. Cigarette addiction is simply that you have such bad withdrawal from the previous one, you have the expectation of losing the withdrawal by smoking again, so you do. So you crave the cigarette because you expect the reward. So if we filter that back to the brain and we say, well, what defines grit? It boils down, there's 7, it just happens there's 7.
Another 7, okay. We still haven't finished the first 7.
Correct, we'll be back, we'll be back. Watch that space, hold that space. 7 is a magic number, which is why I went for it kind of, although it just turned out that way. There are 7 models of human behavior change in terms of increasing your health. But they all boil down to that grit and to expectation of reward.
Okay,
and
so just quickly give us those 7 so we...
Oh God, I don't have them offhand. They're in the book.
Okay, they're in the book.
There's a fear, motivation, there's social, there's all kinds of stuff. I don't have them to hand because I looked at them and said, yada, yada, yada.
Yes.
There is a single factor underneath this. And it's not a ho-hum construct. It's an amazing construct. It's self-efficacy. This was Bandura's social, self-efficacy story, which says there are 2 things. I will change if, number 1, I believe that what I'm about to do is going to work. And second of all, that I can actually do it, that it's within my range. So self-efficacy underlies all the models of change and grit. It says, I'm not doing this for the expectation of reward because it may never come. But I'm doing it because I believe that I can do it. And I believe that what I'm doing is the right thing, which will get me to there. And that's grit because you want the reward, you kind of expect the reward, but it's way down the line and you're going to sacrifice from point A to point B.
Yeah, because you talk about sacrifice.
It's a big thing.
You say, you talk about changing, equaling sacrifice and successful change, and make sacrifice, create that on your own terms.
Correct. So think about this. You're at point A and you know there's a point B that you want to be at. It may not be fully formed, but you kind of know I'm at point A and point B. What happens if you've tried and failed many times to reach that, such as your purpose or mastery or anything else?
Or losing weight.
Or losing weight or any other goal. You may have tried several times and that whittles away at your resolve to change because it says there is no expectancy of reward. Right. Your sense of self-efficacy drops away. So now point B is a cherished ideal that you're never going to get to. You get depressed, you get miserable, you give up, you get demotivated, and you go and eat or you do whatever.
Right, because the gap becomes...
it's called discrepancy. The discrepancy is too big.
Yeah.
Discrepancy, which is too big, creates ambivalence, and ambivalence says on the one hand, I really want to do this, and on the other hand, it's too hard, and your emotions and your feelings collide, and your thoughts go negative. So when the emotional driver says to me, I really want to do this, but your feelings are negative because they say, I'm ambivalent because I've tried before and I'm going to fail, your thoughts become negative and you lose your sense of self-efficacy. So going back to the deep emotions, filtering through and we become aware of them as feelings and then we begin to think about them.
So
That's where
just wanna
ambivalence comes
ask
from.
Questions
Yeah.
so we're clear. Would you say that emotions are more embedded in your, physical realm?
They're purely physical.
And that feelings are energy and
Feelings, your awareness of those emotions. Yeah.
So feelings are the awareness.
How
of
you
the
interpret the
emotions.
energy of your body is your feelings.
That's great.
That's your
Never heard
conscious
that before.
perception of your emotions. Emotions are physical states.
Yeah.
They're
So that's
created
why
by your
people-
autonomic nervous system, by your vagus nerve, your heart, your lungs, your blood pressure. All of those feedback to, oh my God, guys, something's happening in this area.
So that's, I've never heard it said that way. That's amazing. So I know people who are very emotional, but actually are in touch with their feelings.
Correct.
It's a really strange phenomenon.
Your feelings are your appreciation of these emotions, but you are not aware. You're only dimly aware of what these emotions might be. Your interpretation of it is your feelings, and they can be completely wrong. People can misinterpret excitement as anxiety because that's what they've begun to think of it as. Whereas excitement junkies love the anxiety that roller coaster ride brings. It's just the way you interpret it.
Yes.
We can interpret stuff as love, but it's actually dependency. It can just be infatuation and not attachment. And attachment disorders are anxious attachments where the minute we fall in love, we just want to withdraw and hate them, and they're going to cheat and they're going to hurt us, and I don't know why I get so anxious, and I start fighting with my boyfriend and make him miserable because of an anxious attachment. So
But that's interpretive. So we need to be
feelings
clear.
are interpretive.
Yeah, so we need to be clear what's emotion, what's feeling, right?
Well, you can't be clear on emotions because they're physical.
So the emotion. So that actually
They're
relate that
non-conscious.
back then to what we talked about in the brain, the very, very beginning. The guy who subconsciously or non-consciously hasn't seen the blonde, let
Good.
the blonde come through his, full vision
Yeah.
yet. That is almost an emotional thing that's going on. Versus
Absolutely.
when he passes,
Sure.
she passes, then he gets into a feeling.
Sure, and those
Yeah, right.
emotions are being conditioned by every experience you've ever had. The word autonomic nervous system, autonomic means self-naming. This is a set of emotions that live in a dark hole inside you that is non-verbal, or that can be affected by verbal.
So define autonomic so we're clear.
So autonomic is your entire fight or flight, rest and digest,
That's right.
and the enteric nervous system, which is all biogenic amine related to dopamine, serotonin, noradrenaline, all of these things.
The happy, sad,
All of that stuff.
chemistry.
Yeah, but it's blind.
Yes.
So think about this. You are not seeing me at this moment, and you're not hearing me at this moment, because none of that light gets past your retina. None of the sound gets past your tympanum, your eardrum. It is converted to a chemical signal that has no light embedded in it.
That's right.
So where does the light come from?
Yeah, for me, it's all feeling.
You made it up.
Yeah.
Your brain synthesizes all of this material coming in, emotional, physical, sensual, perceptual, ears, eyes, polymodal, heteromodal
It's all
information.
vibration.
Yeah. It's all a set of chemistry that arrives, and your brain recreates your conscious awareness of what this is. And it says, that's intense bright light, and this is half shade, half light. That's all made up.
Interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not aware of any of that. We walk through our life thinking we're actually seeing this stuff.
Yes.
We're not. We're
Like-
recreating what it could be like
Yes.
for that camera.
Which is a little bit phenomenology, right? Where
It's phenomenology of neurology. It's
Yes.
epistemology, because what we regard as facts epistemologically is subject to error.
yes. So
And so that
never
perception of that girl walking past you, and think about where we were going to, which is, I'm at point A, and there's point B. If my non-conscious bias says that point B is too far, given my experience, my knowledge, or the way my mother brought me up, I'm going to have ambivalence rob me of my motivation.
Yes.
Tell me my purpose is purposeless, because the dopamine doesn't kick in. There's no expectation of reward. And grit would need to kick in and say, I don't care, I'm going to do that, even if along the way I have to sacrifice.
Okay, so great. So
Yeah.
then our job as coaches, facilitators, whatever we call ourselves, is to trick the brain a little bit into making that gap not seem so extreme. And
Don't look at the big picture.
Yeah, and to keep it so that it's really doable steps, and present, like that are doable. And it is a bit of a tricking people in a way, to.
Well, it's not tricking
not
it. It's
just
it's
expand
it's
it.
untricking them, because your brain is tricking you and saying, neurologically, if we try and imagine further into the future, if we feed forward our future, activation spreads from the midline of the brain towards the frontal poles.
Right, which is the highest part of
Yeah,
the
it turns out in a 33, 32, 33-year-old, that's only about 12 weeks ahead. When you're thinking more than about 2-3 months ahead, bang, you've got no more frontal lobe. The simulator of your brain cannot get beyond 3 months. And for an ADD kid, it's a few seconds.
Interesting.
You're activating forward into your frontal lobes to be able to engage yourself with that future. It's very easy to run out of steam to run out of gas
So
before you can get to point B.
So break it down for the brain.
Point B might be 2 years away.
Yeah.
It might be, people say, what is your 5-year plan? I go to them, drop dead. My brain does 3 months. Well, I'm 60. My brain probably does 2 months, maybe.
Yeah.
I can't think it. That's why people don't get excited about end-of-year exams until 12 weeks is coming up. That's why people don't get through 12 weeks at the gym. This is a magic number in a young person because your brain can't activate a lot of simulators that can imagine 5 years from now.
So would you say then have people envision 3 months around their...
Your goal should be 3 months or less. So when you're looking at a 5-year goal, which is 60 months, that's 20 times 3 months. That's 20 micro goals, and all you got to do is knock them down like straw dolls, like dominoes, and guess what? You land up there. That's why I say 70% is good. If a person has a brain injury and they want to get back to who they were, which is impossible for most people, I agree to go with them all that way. But by the time we poop out at 70% of their goals, they're already happy, and I can wash my hands and say, this is as good as it gets. You're happy, you got 70% of the way back to the Lord, to your business, to your boyfriends. You're cool.
Right.
So here's the thing. It's the collision between your emotions and your thinking that creates the ambivalence.
Right, not your feeling, your emotions.
Well, your thinking, primarily, you're not really dealing with emotions, but you're getting a gut response that says, I can't do it. So your feelings are influenced, and now your feelings, your emotions, and your thinking are all clashing and bumping.
Not aligned.
Correct.
Yeah.
As the coach has to start with, let's get down to the deep emotional drivers about why you want to do this. Ken won't leave me if I'm thin. Let's talk about the micro goals. You want to lose 20 kilos, I'll go with you, but we're probably going to land up at 10 or 12, which we did. And finally, let's make it doable so we don't engage this ambivalence if it's all too hard.
Yes.
So we're changing the thinking, reinterpreting the feelings, and the emotions will follow suit. Because the emotions are blind.
So we could probably speak for about another 6 hours, which I know you and I both don't have that time in our schedule today, and I'd love to have future discussions. I guess my last question is, you have put so much of your life into working with people, into getting extremely educated around how to work with people. Why do you do it? Why the passion for it? What motivates you?
When I was a little boy, my sister my father had this business that he worked with, and they would bring in these really complex, beautiful toys from Japan. Japan had come back from the war and was making these incredible things. And they didn't last 5 minutes if you were left alone, because I used to take them apart, and I couldn't put them back together again. And the whole point of my life was I still take things apart, and I'm immensely curious. So I'm an ecological detective. I want to answer the question always, why is this person presented with these symptoms at this time of their life? I need to answer those 3 things. Why this person? Why this time of their life? Why these symptoms? I'm immensely curious about people and about things. And I take them apart, and I became a psychologist, a neuropsychologist, and peak performance psychologist. I wanted to learn how to put these things back together. But I was frustrated by the physical stuff. I started life as a thotist and prosthetist, working in the military, building artificial limbs, which nobody would wear, and putting people into braces that they hated. And nothing made sense. So I went into psychology, and nothing made sense there. I was doing all of the psychodynamic stuff, and then CBT, and BT, and CT, and GT, and all of these fads. When I started to integrate them, then I started to feel the curiosity. I could put people back together because I could penetrate the phenomenology of their existence. And I could find the little bit. And I had that as a kid. I used to look at my father's Volkswagen Beetle engine, which wouldn't start. And I automatically said, that thing looks like it should move. And I moved it, and the engine would start, because it was the choke of the engine that was. Well, I've always had that capacity to try and unpack things and penetrate phenomenology.
And I, for one, am extremely grateful for who you are and your work, because people think, not everybody, but that it's about the external world and what we get and what we're going to do. And I, for one, love that you are as committed to what drives us, taking us apart in such a way that puts us back together as human beings, human beingness, that creates more possibility, because I'm all about possibility. So thank you for your work. And yeah, I'm assuming we will have a lot more of these discussions, because there's a lot there to uncover, get clear about, because you are a walking Wikipedia, Dr. Roy Sugarman.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching Alexandra Joy TV. If you want to find out more about how you can create anything and that anything is possible, please click subscribe.